So in the initial verse, diligent practice along the path gradually moves toward forming great resolve. Here is obviously about as we advance in the practice with diligence, and we hold this great resolve, especially on our aspirational vows. Scorning the former mindset, the courageous set aside the small, and this is part where the chapter goes on to talk about the four growing in realization. So in Agama and Vaipuya period, Samadhi and wisdom were equally important. So if you remember, Master always say in a pre-flawless study, precept, Samadhi, and wisdom. So obviously precepts are, as we know, that in any practice in Buddhism, that is fundamental. So this Samadhi and wisdom, which are equally important, and in the Prajna period, they learned that the two complete and ultimate practices. So what are these two complete and ultimate practices? And that's where the Samadhi and wisdom they are being reinforced by love. So in the Master's explanation, starting from Agama period, they move into the Vaipuya, and then the Prajna teaching gradually entering the Buddha's original intent, which is complete Dhamma vehicle. And then one went on to teach the Sutra Infinite Meanings as you enter the Lotus period. So of which I think these sutras are very familiar to all of you. The Sutra Infinite Meanings, of which the book study by headed by Chris Chu has been completed. So in the past, they had been more self-indulgent, and this is actually something that we need to be very mindful of, because we are unenlightened beings. Being unenlightened, we are even more self-indulgent. The Buddha wanted everyone to know not to be attached, as everything is ultimately empty, and they quickly return to walking the middle way. Again, it's easy to speak of, easy to listen to this teaching, but to practice it's not been easy, because if one can just practice this alone, one will be very, very well spiritual, very well accomplished, because unknowingly in many ways we want things to be done our way. Thus, in the Agama and Vaipuya periods, Samadhi and wisdom were made equally important. Samadhi in stillness, and obviously wisdom in opening the mind to learn beyond the mind. Then in the Prajna period, the power love was unified with wisdom, and this is what it is, the power love. Why is the power love has a unified wisdom? That's because to open up the heart to love everyone, all sentient beings, and that's where the Bodhisattva path is. That's where that verse refers to that the two complete and ultimate practices. So the Buddha's lifetime conditions for transformation were at an end towards the end. And the Buddha also said the Sutra bequeathed teachings, and she said that all those who could be transformed had already been transformed. Those who had not been transformed had already attained the karmic conditions that will lead to their transformation. So obviously in here referring to, there are those people who have affinity with the Buddha, listen to the teaching, they've been transformed. So there are also those who have the affinity but don't want to listen and don't want to walk the path. But there are also those who don't have the affinity to listen to the Buddha, even though the Buddha could be in that village. So these are the ones that one had to plant the seeds. That's why in Buddhism, we don't go around converting. We just should walk the assembly path so that people can be attracted to the path. And this is what masters say, why are there so few Buddhists in this world? And this is about growing in affinity. And but I obviously there are some who would go around and convert, but and something for us to contemplate and understand deeply this particular paragraph in here. And what is that teaching? That this line that I just put in quote, I think is useful to contemplate. Then you will understand what you should and should not do when it comes to the propagating the Dharma. Lessons learned. When the Buddha's condition for transformation in his life were about to end, even in the middle of the night, obviously, then bequeath is still continued bequeath teachings, and earnestly asks us to practice the Four Noble Truths, the different practice enlightenment and Noble Eightfold Path, etc. Buddha has told us to uphold precepts. And so the uphold precepts meaning that so samadhi and wisdom, like earlier on the two teachings, unified by love, and so the precepts, and this one the earlier part of the teaching. So only with precept can the Dharma lineage be continued. And the reason why fundamentally in all the traditions, whether it's the small vehicle teaching, Theravada, or whether it is Mahayana or Vajrayana tradition, fundamental of which are the precepts, and the 5 precepts are actually fundamental of to all. So all great bodhisattvas gather at the Lotus Assembly, like Manjushri, Maitreya, Kuan Yin, and the great might bodhisattva. And this here, the introductory chapter of the Lotus Sutra, listed down 18 bodhisattvas, and these are equal enlightenment. And that is the power and the affinity of the Buddha. And that's obviously power means spiritual power. Even the great bodhisattvas will come and listen. So the Lotus Sutra connects all teachings of all the other sutras, or they, as Brother Alex explained, or they all enter the great vehicle. Thus, the Lotus Sutra is called the king of sutras because it encompasses all the other sutras. So relating to this in the contemplation, during the time of the Buddha, the monastic disciples went to beg for alms, beg alms for food as to practice to quell the desire of the heart. So you see, for us as a lay disciples, right? So we don't beg, and so therefore we work and do earn our wages, and so that's how we live. But obviously, for the monastic, they have given up lay life, so they would have to ask for food. But now there are two things to understand when the monastic for to do that. Number one is that they humble themselves, quell the desire. And number two is that also give the opportunity for the lay people like ourselves to do offerings to the Sangha community. So this was the condition of transformation to sustain the physical life, and that's where it is. And that's how it is. As much this tradition is still very strictly practiced in the Theravada tradition. So upon the return to their abode, they listen to the Dharma delivered by the Buddha to develop the wisdom mind. Right? That's how they quell the desire, and that is to go back to listen with the wisdom mind. So when I call the desire, what they're practicing is, remember the two great teaching that is referring today is samadhi and wisdom, right? So samadhi, when you do that, you actually lower down, you humble yourself so much, and then quell your ego. And that's where you can go into stillness as you walk with being humble of the humble. So as a householder in practice, that's why the difference is for us, we practice freely without the Vinaya rules. How then can a household practice efficaciously? And it's a question that I often ask. And here we are listening to the sutra, and the teaching is so obviously delivered to the monastic practitioners, although they were lay disciples who were listening. So, but when it comes to apply that in practice, we don't have these Vinaya rules. All we have is only 5 precepts, and then wholesome deeds. So then how can we then practice efficaciously? So there are really demands to meet for a householder, as you all know, and I've got a family, got to work, got friends, and so on and so forth. So as a householder in practice must therefore be always aware and mindful of one's way in the arising or desire and development of the mind. So whilst we don't do, so how can we then be in practice of stillness? And so we can only do that if we are always be aware and mindful of our way arising from design development of the mind. Because if not, we can't be in that state of samadhi. So this is also for us, for householders, we must then apply the great effort for us to tame our ego and to subdue our mind. So seek to understand your heart and mind. And because no one can do that for you, no amount of teachers can do that for you. It's only you who know your heart, you know your mind, be able to subdue your heart and mind. I mean, no matter how much you may know about the sutras and dharma, all you need is only a spark to arise the anger, and then you know how much and how well you have actually applied the teachings to your life. Relationship, transforming the view of a relationship. All of a relationship, we have certain views of how we get on and so on and so forth. And again, and that because of a desire, emotion that arises, and that will change a relationship. So forwarding to the future is running away from the present pains. And very often, when the pandemic is going to end, what's going to happen? Would there be where there may be a new leader in the country, so on and so forth. And this is obviously and create anxieties in our life. So waiting for good times or pleasant future is simply fills one with anxiety without addressing the present. And so the future is not here yet. And that's why sometimes in our relationship, what will be in the future? What will happen when we grow old? What happened going 5 years from now, 10 years from now? So the future is the result of the present. So, and much that we all understand this, but when it comes to application, when the most emotion arises and certain words that we say will disrupt the whole relationship. Therefore, you've got to change your destiny. Obviously, you change your present, you change your destiny. So when one does not like the present, change it by transforming the mind. There's nothing you can do. That's the phenomena of people's mental objects. Where does phenomena comes from? Phenomena comes from the mind. So therefore, you transform the mind, you can transform the phenomena. So to purify it, obviously far thoughts. And here, that's when you find peace in your heart. Okay, God and brothers, sisters, thank you.
And then so much, BrotherChin. Yeah. Great, splendid sharing, great insight. Yeah. Okay, let us take our group photo. Please on your video, all of you, brothers and sisters. This is the Kaping diligently going out for his walk. Are you allowed to walk within your? Is it
She has special permission, got special permit from Miti.
From Miti, yeah. Okay.
Well, that's why I'm trying to walk early and get it over and done with before everyone wakes up.
Not to be seen, huh? Okay, walk gracefully then. Okay, okay. Great. Okay, Kanan. Next, can we have Sister Siu Ching to give us a few words of guidance?
Brother Robert, for the wonderful hosting and all the great guidance and wisdom by the brothers and sisters.